Brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
You're listening to Living Full Out with Nancy Solari. As a successful motivational speaker and trusted life coach, Nancy knows how you can live the life you want regardless of the challenges you face. Although she's legally blind, Nancy's mission is to inspire others to overcome obstacles and live life full out. Call in at 800-333-0001 to ask Nancy for advice on topics such as relationships, finances, business, health, and more. Just call 800-333-0001. Once again, that's 800-333-0001. And now, here's Nancy.
Welcome to the Living Full Out Show. My name is Nancy Solari. I hope everyone's having a great day. Today, we are going to focus on expanding yourself. How do you expand yourself out of your current situation if you're in one that's just kind of rocky or just feel stuck? How do you expand yourself into doing new things, trying new things that you've never done before? And furthermore, how do we expand ourselves to dream big, to go beyond even what we think is possible? That's what we want to focus on during our show today. And we will be taking your calls. Again, the number to call in is 800-333-0001, 800-333-0001. It's very interesting when I think about expanding my life, because being visually impaired, literally, for people ask me oftentimes, what does that mean? Well, it means my life is blurry. It means there's not a lot of details. And so when I expand myself, when I expand my vision or what I think is possible, I literally start from the inside out, meaning it isn't what I see. It isn't what I research or read online or pictures that I see. It all comes from, in my mind, a visual for what I want, or who I want to be, what I want to look like, what environment I want to be in. And so that's just the interpretation of how I expand myself, how I build my vision for my life. For you, for anybody else listening, we're each going to have different ways. And, tapping into shows like this, or reading books to motivate you, or doing vision boards, or whatever that may be, to put together a collage of ideas. It all starts with brainstorming. It all starts with getting creative with what's possible. That's where you start. When you expand yourself, you plant seeds. You might plant a seed for an idea that you have and it won't work out. I mean, entrepreneurs and business people do that all the time, right? There's oftentimes 10 failing businesses before you hit the one that does work. And in life, that's the same way too, right? How many relationships do we try before hopefully the one works out? And then even after that one, you got to plant more seeds. So when we're talking about expanding yourself, expanding your abilities, your vision for your life, I want you to courageously go beyond what you even think is possible. If you think that a certain hobby is out of reach, if you think that traveling to a certain country or location is out of reach financially, I want you to stretch yourself and figure out, no, that is possible. Just figuring out, what do I need to do to get there? And then most importantly, as we go along this journey today, if you're in a situation, could be a relationship, could be just a really stressful, challenging time in your life, the beauty of life is that these moments do pass. I mean, it takes all the vigor and resilience and motivation that we have to get through them. I mean, they really test our abilities to thrive and to make our dreams come true. But when you get through the fire of any situation, challenge, unhealthy environment, when you do get to the other side, you have now expanded yourself past that point. So I welcome everybody today to really assess in our lives, what can we do? How can we grow? How can we further expand? And again, taking your calls is part of that. So for everybody calling in who's got a courageous question kind of keeping them up at night or heavy on their hearts, this is the time to get that motivation. We'll also be coming back in our second and third segment with Michael Frenzies. Oh my gosh, I got to tell you, his story it's inspiring, but it also makes us all very grateful for what we have. And I'll let him expand further on that story. We're going to go to the phone lines now and take our first caller. Welcome to the show.
Hi, Nancy. This is Victoria.
Hi, Victoria. So tell us, what's going on in your life today?
So my question for you, first I'm going to go, the question is, I want to know how to approach my family to let them know that I don't want to help them anymore. And it sounds kind of selfish, but I'm 25 now, and I have not received my bachelor's degree. And I've helped them since I was 17. I've helped my family financially, me and my parents, our family, extended family too. And I've had to take a lot of time off from school. I've got my associate's degree, but I'm ready to finish my bachelor's. And I don't know how to tell them that I can't help them anymore. That I have to put myself first without being selfish.
No, that's not selfish. It's actually a great question. Do you feel as though they just rely on you too much?
I do. I guess thinking on it back now when I was 17, everybody was like, no, that's too much pressure. But I felt like I was contributing positively. And now I feel that it's just holding me back. Well,
so it's interesting that you bring up this question because we've actually had this question before, a similar question. And so know that you are not alone. You know, sometimes when we try to be there for others and we kind of fill a gap in their life, they will oftentimes get used to that. They rely on that. And so sometimes you have to step back so that they can fill in that gap for themselves. And I think what you did was lovely, and I think it really showed the love that you had for your family. But you're right, it is time now for you to expand your own self, to reach for those career goals that you have. And so the people that you currently are supporting, are they capable of doing and working and doing what you're currently doing for them?
Yes. Now's a good time. That's why I feel comfortable enough to talk to them about it, but I still feel bad.
Okay. Well, but here's the thing. Do you think that your happiness and your success means something to them?
I do.
Okay. And do you think that if for any reason they thought that you were not living up to your potential, to your goals and dreams, do you think that they would be disappointed in themselves, that they let you down?
You know what? Yeah, I never thought about that.
Mm-hmm. So it's interesting as you start to have this dialogue with them, you want to think of both sides. The best way to go into any conversation, heavy, light, you name it, is to really consider both sides and to consider what they've gained from this time with you helping them, but also if you weren't there, what that might look like, what would they have needed to do. Consider both sides. Also, be ready to come to them with not this is what I'm doing. You don't want to ever have a conversation be I. It's we. Right. We. As a collective whole, we got through these years together. And I'm so glad that as part of this team, I was able to contribute the best I could. But now, for all of us, I want to go on and do great things so that we can further grow as a family, so that we have more opportunities. Because if you grow and you expand and you, let's say, make more money or have more opportunities and doors open, that also could help the family, right?
Right. Mm-hmm.
So the best way to enroll people into change is to see both sides, consider all the different angles of different scenarios, different opinions, different rebuttals or objections, but then be prepared to make it a positive transition. And then if you feel, or for anybody listening, if you feel like a gap that you're filling, that they would have a hard time filling that gap, because sometimes people are disabled or older or something like that, then before you make that change, you just want to have in mind some resources, low cost, free, whatever that may be, to kind of fill in the gap.
Mm-hmm.
Is that something you can do?
It does. It sounds like it's very doable.
Perfect. Well, I am really excited for you that you're taking this journey because, wow, you were given this breath of life, right? And you've done great things with it. You've been a supportive friend, daughter, and just contributor to this planet. But at the same time, it's time for you to reach. It's time for you to challenge yourself and reach those personal goals.
Right.
Mm-hmm. So definitely
you.
call in. Keep us updated on how things go.
Okay, I'll do that.
All right. Thank you for calling in.
Thank you.
You know, that last caller brought up some really great points. You know, change can be difficult. When we're trying to expand our lives, we will automatically affect other people in our lives. So it's important to consider, you know, who may be affected by your desire to have change in your life. Now, it isn't to say that you shouldn't expand, that you shouldn't take on those risks, but it's always better to live a life being humble, to live a life of consideration and gratitude. And when we make big leaps in life, it's much easier to make those leaps and take people with us when we don't do it so rash, so quick. So what you want to do is think things through a little bit. Don't be paralyzed by time. Don't think about things too long. But you want to definitely think about all the different angles of a situation and then step out there and do it, because part of living full out is taking risks. It is about being courageous and taking the necessary action steps to move forward in your life. I love that she called in. I love that she's caring about her situation, but you know, there's so much ahead for her, and I hope that she's excited for this new journey coming. I know when we even think about this show, you know, all that we try to do each week to bring motivation to you, we're going to be expanding the show, expanding our guests. And that's exciting, because I know that as we expand, well, we may go through our own growing pains on our production end, we are better serving you. We're better bringing guests that are relatable and just allowing you to tap into that motivation, that empowerment each week. And so we'll be coming right back in our next segment with Michael Franzese. And I'm telling you, stick with us on this one, because I've never met a man like him. He's had an extraordinary life, and one that I don't think anyone can say they've walked in other than him and the people he's been with. But we all have those extraordinary lives, right? So that's how we learn from each other, by sharing in our experiences. So we'll be right back after this break.
Isn't this dinner party wonderful? Jeanette and Bill did so much planning, and the house looks great.
Well, you know, it was almost canceled. Did you hear that Bill was really sick with the flu 2 weeks ago?
No, I had no idea. I've been so busy at work. But my coworker's toddler was in the hospital with flu, too. Is Bill okay?
It was pretty serious and aggravated his asthma. Bill got sick quickly with a high fever. Fortunately, Jeanette got him to the doctor right away. The doctor said it was flu and prescribed a medication that helped him get back on his feet.
I didn't know flu was so serious until I heard Bill say he felt like he'd been hit by a truck. He missed a big meeting at work.
Well, thank goodness Jeanette had gotten her flu shot. Because, you know, she's expecting.
What? Oh, man.
I guess that was another thing you guys didn't know either.
A message from the Department of Health and Human Services.
Hi. I can't come to the phone right now because I'm abusing my children. Not just verbally, but physically. I'll get back to you.
If only child abuse was this easy to recognize. If you even suspect abuse, call Child Help at 1-800-4A-CHILD or visit childhelp.org. We've helped millions of people help millions of children. All calls are anonymous and confidential, so call 1-800-4A-CHILD or visit childhelp.org. Child Help. Trust your instincts. Brought to you by Child Help and the Ad Council.
Driving has a rhythm all its own. Don't wreck it with a text. Before you get behind the wheel, silence your phone. Or better yet, designate a texter. For more text-free driving tips, visit stoptextstoprex.org. Brought to you by the Ad Council and the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration.
Today, you hit the snooze bar. You checked your email. You checked your fantasy football team. You rejected an insulting trade offer. You ate your lunch. You did all the things that one normally does the day before a 175-mile-per-hour hurricane blows through your city, leaving it in a state of ruin. You never know when the day before is the day before. Prepare for tomorrow at ready.gov/today. Brought to you by FEMA and the Ad Council.
You're listening to Living Full Out with Nancy Solari. A professional motivational speaker, Nancy can help you overcome obstacles and start living full out. Call in with questions live at 800-333-0001. Once again, that's 800-333-0001. And now, here's Nancy.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Living Full Out Show. I am Nancy Solari, and today we are focusing on expanding yourself, how to grow into the life that we desire, how to kind of transition in the smoothest way possible and deal with those stressful, challenging bumps in the road as we take them. Now, as I promised, we have a very special guest here, Michael Franzese, and honestly, Michael's story is unlike any other that I've heard of, and I'm going to let him tell it because he will tell it best. So I'd like to welcome Michael Franzese.
How are you?
Hi, I am good. You know, Michael, it's interesting. I grew up in Oregon, just kind of country girl from Oregon, and you grew up a much different way and with a much different family. But the funny thing is we all adapt to the environments we grow up in. And you know, what I think is so extraordinary about your tale, which you're going to tell us over these next couple segments, is just how you truly expanded your life from being in a family in circumstances that you loved and adored, but then you took control of your life and steered it in the direction that you wanted. So I'm excited to share this with our community. Can you share with our listeners how you grew up, a little bit about when you were younger and your father and just the environment?
Sure. My dad was the underboss of the Colombo family. That's one of the 5 New York Mafia La Cosa Nostra families. And I grew up in Brooklyn and later moved out to Long Island, but spent many, many years in Brooklyn. And my dad was a very high-profile figure at the time. He was constantly under government surveillance. He had a lot of the state and local authorities that would surveil him constantly. And I grew up in an atmosphere where, you know, law enforcement, police, government were actually the enemy because I loved my dad very much. And he was kind of my hero, my idol in life. And I saw them as the enemy trying to hurt him and harass our family. So that's kind of the environment I grew up in. And even though my dad was smart in that he didn't teach me to disrespect the law, he taught me to respect the law. But it was really more of what I witnessed as a kid growing up. And he didn't want that life for me originally. He wanted me to go to school and be a doctor. And I was on that road. I was actually a pre-med student, second year in college, when my dad was indicted on some very serious charges and eventually drew a 50-year prison sentence for masterminding a nationwide string of bank robberies. And charged that until today, actually I'll take it to my grave, that my dad was innocent of. I don't believe he committed those robberies or masterminded that deal. And, you know, again, I'll take that to my grave after a very thorough investigation on my part. But, you know, that kind of, I kind of really was upset, obviously. My dad was 50 years old when he went into prison, and I figured at 50 on top of that, he'd never come out of prison alive. So Joe Colombo, who was the boss of my family at that time, he kind of took me under his wing. I would meet a lot of my dad's friends. And eventually I got disillusioned with school and wanted to do something to help my dad out, to help him get out of that, what basically was a death sentence. So I went to visit him in Leavenworth Penitentiary. We sat in the visiting room, and I told him, Dad, I'm not going to school anymore. If I don't help you out, you're going to die in here. And, you know, he was unhappy about that. He wanted a different life for me. He really did. And we had kind of a heated discussion, one of the first times I ever got into a heated discussion with my dad. But he knew my mind was made up, and he kind of threw his hands up, and he said to me, son, if you're going to be on the street, I want you on the street the right way. And in his mind, the right way was to become a member of his life. So very long story short, he proposed me for membership into the family. You know, when you come into that life, you have to be sponsored or proposed by somebody that's in the life. And eventually, on Halloween night, 1975, which was 40 years ago this past Halloween, myself and 5 other gentlemen went into a room, and we all took an oath and became sworn made members of the family. Mm-hmm. And, you know, there was something, honestly, I took very seriously back then. It was a serious commitment. I take it seriously today, even though I don't consider myself a member of that life anymore. But for the next, from 1970 until about 1975 until 95, when I consider myself formally removed from that life, I operated first as a soldier and then a captain. They elevated me to the position of Capo Regime or captain in 1980. And that was my life for 20 years. And I was, you know, honestly, I was, you know, mob guy all the way. And this was my life. This was my commitment. This is who I was. And,
now, I'm just curious, Michael, because that is such an extraordinary life. And obviously you've done amazing amount of growth, and we'll get to that here in a second over time in terms of evolving as a man, as a father, and so forth. But during that time, obviously you took your oath very seriously, but you're very motivational now. You're very positive now. Within that environment, were you living who you wanted to be at that time? Did it feel comfortable for you wearing that hat?
You know, I guess there's two sides of that. I was comfortable in that, you know, I was the kind of guy that wanted to be the best possible of anything that I could be. So I was very motivated to be the best possible mob guy I could be. However, you know, I have to be honest, there were things that occurred in that life that I had to be involved in that I wasn't comfortable with. And I did it anyway. You know, I can't use that as an excuse because I did what I had to do in order to maintain, you know, my existence and my status in that life, but I was never really comfortable with it. Mm-hmm. And, you know, just cut to what happened later on, and I'm sure we'll get to that. I think that's one of the reasons why I've been blessed to the degree I am, because even though I did things wrong, I had a conscience about it, and it bothered me. And I, you know, at least outwardly, I saw others that, you know, didn't react the same way. It was more of something that was more comfortable for them, I guess. And again, that's from outside appearances. I don't know what was in their mind or their heart. Mm-hmm. And they may have thought the same of me, but it just wasn't comfortable, you know, and it was things that I had to deal with during that time.
You know, it's interesting because obviously that was just many chapters of your life, and they were kind of dark days, and several of them. But you know, we hear in the news all the time about people who do different crimes, or you know, I've coached people over the years where they are just ashamed of what they've done in their past. Like they're the best jury, they're the best judge, you know, for their situation. They're going to keep themselves paying for it forever. What do you say to those people having gone through it? I imagine you had to find forgiveness within yourself for some of the actions that you did. How do you see forgiveness?
Well, you know, this is the one thing about the Christian faith, about our faith, that is, I guess, so freeing of you, in that, you know, it's very hard to forgive yourself. And people have asked me all the time, you know, people ask me a lot, you know, Michael, are you doing what you do now to make up for the 20 years that you had in that life? And my answer to that is no. Because I know you can't change what happened in the past. I can't go back and get a do-over. What's done is done. And, yeah, I struggle with some things at times, but, you know, the great thing about our faith is that we are forgiven if we sincerely ask for forgiveness, and our hearts are sincere. And, you know, that's the key. You know, when I first walked away from that life, and I wanted to change, I wanted a transformation, I didn't know why I wanted it. I didn't know if it was self-serving, if it was just for me, or if it was something I really felt. And I think, you know, the challenge is not mainly forgiving yourself, but the challenge is making sure that you're real, that you're sincere, that you really want this, that you want forgiveness. And, I believe I've reached the point, a while ago where, yeah, it's true. I mean, I do want forgiveness. I want to do better in my life. And I go on and do what I can right now. But that transformation comes from the inside out. And I don't know, if you're not of our faith, I don't know how that happens, honestly.
Well,
I don't know.
Yeah, and I imagine during that process of change, there were people that did not want you to change. Obviously, I've learned a lot about you, and I know that there was even making that change was could have been life or death for you.
Oh, I had tremendous resistance, and obviously, a lot of people very upset with me, including my father, who in a way betrayed me. He absolutely did, and I understand, the position he was in. Everybody thought that, I was going to become a federal witness and start testifying against people and betraying people in that way, but that wasn't what I wanted to do. And I wouldn't do that, and I didn't do that, but people didn't understand that that's not what I was going to do. So, I had a very difficult time for a number of years. And, you're never out of the woods. I can't say now that, hey, everything's great, everybody's happy with what I did. That's not the case. So I still have to, be mindful of that. But, it's a rough road. But, these things are never easy. When you get yourself into a lifestyle like I did that has so many attachments and complications and ramifications, well, I did that to myself. It was a choice that I made, so I didn't expect it to be a bed of roses walking away. But I think I was prepared for it. I knew the life intimately well. I understood what I was facing, and I had the support around me to make the change, and that's why I am where I am today.
Well, and I know one of your biggest source of strength is your wife, and when she entered your world, a lot changed.
Oh, that's for sure. I mean, I believe that, meeting her really saved my life in many ways. It either saved my life, it certainly saved my freedom, because had I gone on in that life and followed that path, there's no doubt in my mind, it's not even a question mark, that I'd either be dead or in prison for the rest of my life. I mean, that's where I was headed. I became a major target of law enforcement. I had, several law enforcement agencies after me. I went to trial 5 times, and very, very fortunate. I was successful in those cases, but, your luck runs out. It doesn't stop.
I hear you. Well, when we come back in our next break, Michael, I want to talk about that change. So we'll be right back after this break.
Okay.
Hi, professional skateboarder Tony Hawk here with Bugs Bunny and Daffy Duck to remind you to get moving every day.
Because when you get moving an hour a day,
you'll have the energy to skate through anything.
Nice play on words, Doc.
That's how I roll, Bugs. So whether you like to work the half pipe,
now that's catching air,
kick the soccer ball around, or dance in your room,
just move it your way.
For an hour a day.
The way you like to move, as long as you're moving.
Carve out some time every day and get active. Because it's time to do a 180 on what you think exercise is.
Because it can be whatever you want it to be. So be a player.
Be a player.
Get up and play an hour a day, Doc. Check out how to be a player at letsmove.gov.
Head online to get tips on great ways to get moving every day.
At www.letsmove.gov. Let's hear that one more time, Doc. That's www.letsmove.gov. A message from the Ad Council and HHS.
I want to change some things. I want the moms where I live to have childcare they can trust.
I want to make sure my little brother and his friends have a safe place to play.
I want to help more kids graduate from high school.
Help more hardworking families learn how to budget and save.
I want more of my neighbors to have access to health care.
Want to make a difference? There are so many ways you can. Help create opportunities for everyone in your community.
I want to change what I see around here.
United Way is creating real, lasting change where you live by focusing on the building blocks of a better life: education, income, and health.
I mean, I just want to see more smiles on my sidewalks.
Reach out a hand to one and influence the condition of all. Give, advocate, volunteer. Live United. For more, visit United Way at liveunited.org. Brought to you by United Way and the Ad Council.
You're listening to Living Full Out with Nancy Solari. As a trusted life coach, Nancy will help you overcome setbacks and embrace all life has to offer. Call in with questions live at 800-333-0001. Once again, that's 800-333-0001. And now, here's Nancy.
Welcome back to the Living Full Out Show. My name is Nancy Solari, and we are in a great interview here, very engaging with Michael Franzese. He was actually in the mob for over 20 years and, you know, really grew up in a lifestyle that was quite extraordinary. But he took big risks. He was courageous enough to transition himself into the life that he designed for himself, and he's sharing that journey with us now. So welcome back, Michael.
Thank you. Good to be here.
Yeah, and you know, it's interesting, Michael. I hear all the time different clients say, you know, I'm just sick and tired of being sick and tired, or they say, you know, I'm tired of the struggle. And it's interesting because you were making, you know, millions of dollars a month. You had quite a lifestyle, and then you transitioned and you did well for yourself. But then again, when law enforcement found you during one of those times that you were indicted, they took away all your money. You know, you were telling that story one time in one of your speeches that I saw, and I thought it was so interesting that, you know, life basically got really hard. Can you share with us that time and just how you navigated making the transitions from such highs to such lows?
Well, you know, I will say this. When I was enjoying, or when I was making all that money, maybe because I was a mob guy and I knew the government was always watching me, it wasn't that I took the money and I flaunted it. As a matter of fact, you know, I'll be honest with you, I had millions, you know, stashed in my house. And I didn't even think about it being there. It wasn't like, hey, I'm a millionaire and I got all this, it's great. Now, you know, honestly, I lived in a huge house, and I had, you know, a house in California, in New York, and Florida, and I had a jet plane and a helicopter. But they were convenience. They were more for, you know, to help me in the business and the work that I was doing, because I was very active. But listen, it is a far fall from grace. There's no doubt about it. When my world came tumbling down, and some of it was by choice because I accepted a plea. I had a 10-year prison sentence, $15 million restitution, $5 million in forfeitures. I gave up the plane, the helicopter, a lot of my assets just to get a 10-year deal, believe it or not, because 10 years at that time wasn't a lot of time the way they were giving mob guys back in the 80s. You know, they were on these racketeering laws. People were going down and getting sentenced to 50 years, 100 years, life. I mean, it was amazing for me to be able to negotiate a deal for 10 years, believe it or not. And, you know, then I did 5 years in prison, and it was a very difficult time because, again, it became public that I walked away from the life, and people were very upset with me. The government, you know, put a lot of pressure on me to become an informant and start testifying, so they moved me around to different prisons trying to break me down. I mean, it was a tough time, no doubt about it, but you know, I was resolved, and, you know, I have to get back to this. You know, I don't credit myself for all of this, because if I would have tried to do this alone, I don't know that I would have made it. But, you know, it was at that time that I had become a person of faith. I had faithful people around me that supported me, that I trusted and believed in. And, you know, I'm kind of an optimistic guy to begin with, and I always believed that, you know, somehow, some way this was going to work out. And, you know, I guess it drew me closer to my faith, because I knew that the only person, or the only being I could rely on was God in this situation. And it drew me closer to him. It honestly did.
And you know, the moment that you really engaged and turned to God for the most help, though, was when you had really hit rock bottom, when you were in your cell, you had felt hopeless. You weren't suicidal, but you just wanted to be over, because you had let your wife down, you had let a lot of people down, Can you share with us that night? Because that night was really the beginning of the rest of your life.
It was, and what happened was, like I said, I did 5 years in prison. I was out on parole for 13 months, and that 13 months was, without a doubt, the most difficult, trying time of my life. And that's because I was, basically, I don't want to say on the run, but I had to be very careful. I couldn't put a house in my name. I couldn't put utilities in my name. My wife and I had to move around. We had 3 little babies at the time. They were only 3 years apart. They were infants. And it was a very trying time. The government was still putting pressure on me. I found it very difficult out on the West Coast to earn a living. I was like a fish out of water. I was under strict parole guidelines. So it was just very, very difficult. And like a fool, and I say this because there's nobody to blame but myself, I violated my parole. And I went back to prison. And that first night, it was so difficult because, number one, they told my wife that I would never be free again. They actually went into our house with a search warrant, and they took every dime that we had. They cleaned out my bank accounts. They even drove my car away because they said they were going to indict me on another racketeering case, and they have the right to do that under the RICO statute. And they told me, driving me down to the lockup in L.A., that I would never see the street again. They were upset with me because I basically wouldn't cooperate. And they put me in that 6x8 cell in Los Angeles Federal Jail, NBC, and they were going to transport me back to Brooklyn in the morning where my original charges stemmed from. And honestly, that night was without a doubt the worst night of my life because it was the first time in my life that I felt hopelessness. I really felt the walls caving in, and it wasn't the jail. I mean, I'd either been in jail myself or visiting my father since I was 5 years old, so it wasn't the prison that scared me. It was the fact that I really believed I was losing everything that was dear to me. My wife, my children. My wife was 27 years old. She waited for me for 5 years, 13 months on parole. We had nothing now to offer her. I said, how is she going to stay with me now? I'm going to lose the girl that basically I did all of this for. I knew they couldn't put me out on the yard because I had, death sentence on me and people were trying to hurt me. They wouldn't take that responsibility. I said, I'm going to spend the rest of my life in this 6x8 cell. And, I was only 39 years old, and it was a scary thought. And, I was laying on the cot, and I said this because it's true, and it's kind of embarrassing, but it's the truth. I would demean people that were suicidal because I said they were weak. They couldn't face up to their troubles. And weakness was something I didn't admire at that time in my life. I didn't realize it. But I wasn't suicidal, but honestly, I wanted to close my eyes and just not wake up. It was just too painful to think of my future.
Well,
it was a real pain.
Yeah, and I can appreciate that pain. I want to ask you, though, because I think it's very interesting how hopeless you were, how much in pain you were. But even today, when you do book signings, there's one quote that you write with every signature. What is that?
Well, it's Proverbs 3, 5, and 6, and it says, I have something in my throat, excuse me.
That's okay.
It says, lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways, acknowledge him, and he will make your path straight. And it tells us to trust in the Lord with all of our hearts. And, it was something for me that was very difficult because I really challenged God at that moment in my life. I really said to God in that cell, I said, listen, I trusted my father more than anything. And look where it got me. I followed him blindly. I said, in my life, take it a step further. I took a blood oath. I surrendered my life to La Cosa Nostra. And when you come into that life, you have to give it all up. It's body, mind, and soul, or you don't survive. It's a whole subculture from everything else that exists. I said, God, I did this twice in my life. I just can't do this again. I can't. I was reading the Bible, and I said, it sounds good, but I can't do this again. I have to be sure, because if there is an eternity, where I spend it is important to me. And I basically said, I had this conversation with God. I said, you know what? You gave me a free will. You said I can accept one of any 100 faiths out there, or I don't have to accept any faith at all. And I'm supposed to believe what my wife and my mother-in-law are telling me, that Christianity is the only way to go. Well, I'm challenging you on that, God. And I said, I need to see evidence of that. And I was serious. I was dead serious. This was too important to me. And all I can say is this. I spent the next 29 months and 7 days in that hole. It was a 6x8 cell, 24/7, just me and God. And it was during that time that my eyes were open. I studied my Bible inside out and upside down. And if you see my prison Bible, there's more of my notes on there than there is scripture. I had my wife send me in several books, probably close to 400 books I read during that time. You can imagine, 24/7, you have nothing else to do. There's no television or anything like that. And I studied every faith. I read about every faith, and I was convinced beyond a doubt, based on, for me, what was solid evidence, that the Bible was God's Word and that Jesus was my risen Savior. And it was during that time that he got me through some very, very difficult times, because it's hard to be in that situation. I don't care how tough you are.
Right.
We weren't meant to be. No, we weren't meant to be solo creatures. We just weren't.
Right. And one of the things is, because we're kind of closing to the end of our time here, one of the things I think was amazing is that you got that clarity, you got that lesson. And as we kind of close out today with this interview, for everybody listening today, sure, you grew up in the family you did. You experienced your time at the mob. Yes, you had highs and lows, and you found that clarity. But you and I both know that we can take all that away, and the human experience is that we experience that side by side, just the circumstances are different. If there's somebody struggling in their life today, maybe another man facing the same situation or woman, what would you say to them as just final words of motivation?
Well, I want to be clear on this. It's not all bed and roses. And to be clear, God never promised us heaven on earth. Never. He promised us heaven in heaven. But what he promised us, and what I've seen very, very clear in my life, that through all the struggles and challenges that I have up until today, he's been behind me. He's given me hope. I turn towards him. I feel better. Things happen to work out. When they don't work out in the short run, for some reason they work out in the long run, or I get comforted about the things that didn't work out. And it's not a delusion. It's not like we're deluding ourselves, because like I said, the evidence is powerful for me. I believe in God. I believe in the Son of God. I believe Jesus is my Savior. So these things are not delusional, and they're based upon facts and evidence for me. So what I would say is this: we have no greater source of hope in this world than there is in God. And I just encourage people all the time to turn to him, because he's what gets you through these difficult times. It really is. And the closer you draw to God, the closer he draws to you.
Absolutely. And you're living proof that change can happen, and your faith got you through. So I really appreciate your time today with us and sharing your story, and we will continue to follow you and support you here on your path. And just thank you so much for your time today.
Well, I really appreciate it, and thank you for giving me the opportunity to share. It's something that I'm always ready, willing, and able to do, so I appreciate it.
You're welcome. Thank you, Michael. And for everybody listening, We'll be right back. Thanks, Michael. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Hey, Dad.
Yeah.
You remember that ball game we went to a couple years ago?
Sure.
And how you didn't have enough cash for 2 hot dogs, so you walked with me on your shoulders until we found an ATM? And then when we got back to our seats, we never saw the hot dog guy again.
Well, I don't remember all that.
Yeah, that was an awesome game.
You never know which moments will be the ones they'll remember forever, so take time to be a dad today. Learn more at 1-877-4DAD-411 or visit fatherhood.gov.
Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and the Ad Council.
Medical mistakes claim tens of thousands of lives every year. The healthcare community is working on it, but you can help. When you communicate with your doctor, when you ask more questions, you reduce your risk of suffering a medical mistake. Doctors can't answer if you don't ask. Help reduce your risk. Questions are the answer. Learn the 10 questions you must ask. Visit www.ahrq.gov. This message brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, the Agency for Healthcare Research and Quality, and the Ad Council.
I'm getting a catcher's mitt.
I'm getting ice skates. I'm getting a devastating flood.
Adults are generous. We're even giving kids global warming, but we can still reduce greenhouse gas pollution. Go to fightglobalwarming.com. Brought to you by Environmental Defense, the Robertson Foundation, and the Ad Council.
There are many sounds in your daily life. Ones that make you smile. Ones that help you relax. And there are some sounds that can help save lives. Wireless emergency alerts, now on many mobile devices, use a unique sound and vibration to bring you critical information about emergencies in your area. With updates from local sources you know and trust, you can be in the know wherever you are. Learn more at ready.gov/alerts. Brought to you by FEMA and the Ad Council.
This is President Barack Obama. In the story of America, the greatest chapters are moments of challenge, when we see people serving their country and one another. Volunteers who step forward into hospital corridors and church basements, along levees and fire lines. And the next chapter is yours to help write. Sign up to volunteer at usaservice.org. That's usaservice.org. Let's renew America together.
A message from Renew America Together, brought to you by the Ad Council.
To live full out means that you take control of your life, that you're courageous enough to expand yourself, expand your vision so that the dreams and goals that you have for yourself are attainable and will be able to come true. There will be doubters. There will be circumstances in your path to limit you or hold you back from excelling. But to expand yourself is absolutely your right and you're worth it. Here's to you living full out.
You're listening to Living Full Out with Nancy Solari. As a certified life coach, Nancy can help you to overcome challenges and start living full out. Call in with questions live at 800-333-0001. Once again, that's 800-333-0001. And now, here's Nancy.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Living Full Out Show. I'm Nancy Solari, and we are talking about expanding ourselves. How do we do that? How do we reach for and be and do more? Well, at the same time, just having enough breath in life to get through all the challenging times, right? You know, the thing I've learned in life is to be honest. When I'm the most honest, the most vulnerable, not just with others, but with myself, that's when I am able to expand. Because when you can look at the ugly moments of life, when you can look at the mistakes we've maybe made, when you can think about maybe the wrong choices we've made, those are all in design. They're in design to allow us to wake up, to experience the, I'm never doing that again. We've all had that feeling. But you don't expand your life. You don't expand yourself into who you want to be and where you want to go without feeling the uncomfortable, without experiencing the disappointments. So I don't want you to be out there in the world feeling ashamed. I don't want you to feel burdened, to feel hopeless, because listening to all of our callers today, and even our last guest, Michael Franzese, you know, life is going to give us circumstances that sometimes make it feel as though, you know what, I just want to give up. It's just not going to work out. But I urge you to protect your goals, your dreams, your vision for your life, and really execute a plan to move forward. That's how you live full out in life. We're going to go to the phone lines now. Welcome to the Living Full Out Show.
Hi, I'm Nancy.
Hi, Nancy. Great name, by the way. Of course. But seriously, tell us, what's going on today?
Well, I'm just kind of going through a rough time. My mother is 90 years old, and she's in assisted living, and she's just gone into hospice. So, you know, she's kind of at the end of her life, I'm afraid, and I'm just kind of torn as to what's the best way to support her now, and you know, what's the most important thing that we can do as a family to make her comfortable, and to make sure she doesn't feel alone in this time.
You know, I love that you're thinking of her and all the things that you can do to make her comfortable. And I would ask her. I really would. You know, the thing is, there's always going to be the things that we can do naturally, you know, bringing them foods they enjoy, if they can eat still those foods, or having them listen to music that maybe allows them to remember of a time in their life or various times in their life when they were happy. But sometimes it's if they have the capability to still talk and still be alert, I would ask her, what are some things that you'd like to do as a family? Don't ask it like the final days are coming, but what can we do to bring you joy? And when you ask somebody, it gives them choice. It allows them to go, gosh, that's great. No one's asked me that, because a lot of times in assisted living facilities, as nice as they are, it's a little restricting for many people. The other thing too is a lot of times, and I've been told this by several family members that unfortunately have now passed, but when I was with them in their final days, what I realized is what gave them joy, what gave them peace, was knowing that their family members were okay, that they were going to be okay. So sometimes the greatest gift, the greatest peace that you could give your mom is to let her know that we're all okay. Again, it's not like you're telling her it's the finale or anything, but you just want to show her that people are doing well. Let her not be stressed being, gosh, I need to be here, because that can make someone feel very alone and very lonely.
Okay.
And the great thing is, it sounds like you have a really good family, and you're obviously a very loving daughter, and trust me, my mom is my best friend, so I can appreciate just so many emotions must be going on inside you. But just...
Well, I think it's hard because she does have mild dementia, and she's never really expressed her feelings. And so when we ask her if there's anything that she would like, or anything she needs, she never says anything. She never asks for anything. So it's really hard to understand what's going on inside there. What she really wants, or what would make her happy.
Well, that's the tough thing about every condition, every disease. Everyone's going to be at different stages, and sometimes people get to a point where they can no longer talk. And so you just want to do what's going to bring her peace, as much peace as you know. Music, foods, talking about stories from the past. Those don't make people sad. Those make people warm in their heart. Those make people proud of those experiences. And again, talking about not the future of what's to come, but just talk about what's going on in people's life, assuring her that everybody is okay. We're all healthy and happy. Just making someone feel as though life is at peace, that's easy. Is that something you can do?
Yeah, I think so. So you don't really advocate that we actually broach the subject of her dying then, and talk about death with her?
Well, that's just kind of a tough one. You know your mom best, but in my final days, I'm just saying my own life, in my final days, I wouldn't want to see people sad, crying, I'm going to miss you and all that. I would rather be happy. I'd rather remember. I'd rather keep it a celebration. And I think most people do want that. I think everybody knows that everybody's going to pass at some point, and people who are sick, they know. And I think they really know, because a lot of times when people are ill, I even believe that sometimes they have the ability to let themselves go. I think the greatest gift that you can give her is just every time you see her, smile. And whatever mood she's in, try to lift that mood. Or if she's happy, be happy with her. And don't let her feel bad for the changes that might occur for her, like she might not remember people or even experiences. But tell her a story. Tell her a story of you and her in her life. It may be a story she remembers, but if she doesn't remember the story, then just tell her a story that would bring her joy.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Well, thank you very much.
Absolutely. Have a great day, and we'll be thinking of you.
Okay, thanks. You too.
Thank you.
Okay.
Bye-bye. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Those are such tough situations, but, each week now we have callers that call in who are dealing with that. So, this is the time to get that support and motivation, and I appreciate everyone who calls in. We're going to go back to the lines. Welcome to the Living Full Out Show.
Hi.
Hi.
First of all, I just wanted to say I read your bio online, and wow.
Oh.
You are such an inspiration.
You are so kind. I appreciate that. I just try every day to do what I can to be a support, and somehow it created a bio for itself. But thank you for looking at that. How can we help you today?
Well, my question is, I am 28, so I'm a little bit older, and I'm looking to do a career change, and I wanted to go back to school and get a degree, but I am having trouble sort of picking one, I guess, and making a decision and sorting out what it is exactly that I want to do.
Isn't the worst feeling in life indecision, right? That's the worst.
Yeah.
Whether we're picking majors or we can't decide what we want to eat for dinner, right? It's the worst feeling. But the good news is you've been faced with indecision before. I'm sure over your life it was chocolate or vanilla, or this movie or that movie. And I'm saying that very simply, but what you want to do is trust yourself. And rather than looking at this time in your life as heavy and all the pressure of time, and I'm 28, I'm getting old, I must make a decision. When you put that pressure on yourself, it's kind of like putting a hand over your mouth and you can't breathe. How can you possibly get creative? How can you possibly close your eyes and dream in color and expand your view of the world when you can't breathe? So what I would like to see you do is consider, what brings you joy. And, perhaps think of professions that could be attached to that. And if that still doesn't help, then there's so many resources. Like I'm sure even at the school you're going to attend, there's career counselors. That's what they do. I mean, people like myself, I'm a life coach, so I help people transition through life with various challenges they have. But there's career coaches out there. But that's what they do. They look at every talent and gift that you have and passion, and they help you craft a career that you're going to love doing and it won't even feel like work. So I just kind of urge you to expand yourself a little bit more, and most of all, be good to yourself. Is that something you can do?
Yeah, I think so. I mean,
I know it's not a magic pill. I know I didn't just deliver you your answer, but believe it or not, it is a process, and the biggest thing you can do, the best gift you can give yourself, is to trust yourself, have patience with yourself, and have fun. Because you know what? You're going to be locked into a job down the line here very soon, and you're going to miss this time, actually, because this is precious time.
Yeah.
Okay. But will you call in and keep us posted on how it goes?
Sure.
Great, because we'd love to support you. And again, thank you for calling in and supporting our show as well.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me on.
Have a wonderful day.
You too.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
I really want to thank all the callers that have called in today, and everybody is at a crossroad, aren't we? We're dealing with parents that are ill. We're trying to decide which careers we should go for. We're, Michael Franzi's making big leaps from the mob to following his Christian faith to dealing with relationship challenges. Life is tough, but it's not so tough that you can't enjoy it. I really want everybody today to not let those challenges have the power over them that you give them. Living full out is really about breathing, enjoying. This is your life. You want to live it big. So thank you to everybody who listened in today. Check out future shows and more resources at livingfullout.com. And thank you to our entire production team today who put the show together. And we will look forward to seeing you again next week, taking your calls and getting motivated. Have a great day.